Welcome everyone to Atheism 101. I'm your favorite bard, Korak the Bard, and in light of the events of the past few days, I've decided to weigh in on something that is unprecedented in recent memory, an attempt on a president's life. Simply unheard of. Unless, of course, you count the 3 attempts on Bush the Lesser, including the infamous drive-by shooing, and then, of course, all that other shit they tried to do to Obama, including the plot by a terrorist group of military men with over $87,000 in munitions and the Trump supporter who sent a pipe bomb to Obama's house. But this is much more recent, and instead of planting a pipe bomb or mailing someone ricin, we had a crazy-ass sniper on the roof proving that Michael Bay is in fact directing the series finale of America, and it's not even as well written as Transformers.
Bumblebee, stop lubricating the man.
The day of the shooting, I had a hot take about Trump's reaction, where I was immediately reminded of other times when he was facing a security risk and how his behavior was very different this time. Some folks didn't take kindly to it, and that's understandable. Plenty of emotions flying about that day.
On both sides.
But what I said then is still true.
From a certain point of view.
A certain point of view?
Yeah, that's the thing with hot takes. You're reacting before all the details are in, so you're kind of rolling the dice. But bards tend to be gamblers by nature, so I'd only ask if it's odd to assume that this guy might know a thing or two about utilizing dirty tricks to orchestrate an incident that makes him look like a hero. The fact that that was among one of my first thoughts is largely a product of Trump's own reputation. As I'm a bard of my word, I'm here to expound on my initial thoughts. And now that we've had a little bit of time to let the details simmer, I thought I'd take a stroll down the rabbit hole of conspiracy land, since the usual conspiracy theorists wasted no time in pulling wild-ass theories out of their asses.
If you don't think they're not willing to set off a low-yield nuclear weapon to get rid of Trump in Milwaukee, I tell you folks, you won't hear this from anywhere else. This is the real deal. The story that the liberal lamestream media is too afraid to tell you. Today we're going to swim in the swampy fever dream that is, as the title says, the Trump conspiracy we all need right now.
That's the name of the movie.
After all, right-wingers love indulging themselves by poring over every inch of footage when it comes to Hillary Clinton, looking for signs of the Illuminati, so why don't I take a stab at it? Besides, Alex Jones has abandoned his usual post of declaring shootings as false flags, and as he's decided to swallow the media narrative of this being a failed assassination attempt, in the vacuum left by his absence, I'm going to assume his position today. Ugh, the chair's all warm and soggy, and it smells of vodka and shame. First, to those of you complaining that Trump wasn't successfully executed,
we were a centimeter away from half of the problem being gone, and you missed!
just fuck off. Political violence, even if it's in favor of your ideology, doesn't solve anything. It makes it that much harder to keep our democracy from going off the rails, and it only leads to more violence. Also, Trump deserves to rot in prison, not be turned into a martyr. But yes, the man who mocked Paul Pelosi after he suffered a violent attack.
Crazy Nancy Pelosi who ruined San Francisco. How's her husband doing, by the way? Anybody know?
This same man who mocked a reporter with a disability and told victims of gun violence to get over it has now been the apparent victim of an attempted assassination. Finally, after a lifetime of luxury and failing his way upwards into one of the most powerful positions on earth, Trump has something legitimate to bitch about. Now, some unhinged folks who may or may not have been part of a terrorist plot to usurp democracy in the U.S. have suggested that Biden himself ordered the hit on Trump. The main problem with that is, if it was Biden, all he'd need to do is declare what happened in official act, and as the Supreme Court has already ruled, he can't be prosecuted for it. So I would think if it were Biden ordering the hit, it'd be SEAL Team 6, a sniper with better aim, or at least a fall guy who wasn't a 20-year-old kid. But what if I told you what really happened? No one could have predicted the election that year. But then an event occurred that was so shocking, it catapulted the Conservative candidate to victory. For the masses of voters, it was all too easy to overlook the simple question, cui bono? Who benefits?
Cui bono?
And with that, we turn to the Korak News Network, QNN Conspiracy Desk. Folks, this was all a setup, I tell you, not orchestrated by the FBI, the CIA, or even the Deep State, but Trump himself.
Bing, 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 bing.
Bing bong.
First of all, looking at the initial shot, we see Trump grab his ear. Is he grabbing it in pain, or is he planting the ketchup packet? You see, some room temperature IQ folks are suggesting that the shooter just grazed Trump, but I propose that the shots were blanks.
Blanks.
Alex Jones has suggested that the would-be assassin was not just a downtrodden wayward youth who was bullied during his high school years, but rather an MK Ultra experiment unleashed on the public.
This person has MK Ultra written all over him.
But here's what really happened. The shooter was actually approached by Trump cronies and offered a substantial reward for playing his part in the shooting. Having a libertarian father, he was already desperate, so he was an easy target for Trump's goons. Ah, but my favorite bard, Korak the Bard, you may say, what about the victims who were injured and the man who was tragically killed that day? Well, if I were an amateur like Alex Jones, I'd merely call them crisis actors. Because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. But no, a bard like myself is steeped in musical theater, so I prefer a more flashy explanation. For you see, what really happened was the person who shot those innocent bystanders was none other than Trump himself.
This brings us to a segment called The Kind of Story We Need Right Now.
That's right, when Trump took to the ground after deploying the ketchup packet. He had just enough time to fire off a few rounds to make it look like a real attack. He always said,
I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
Well, in July of 2024, he finally put that theory to the test.
Oh! Ho!
Back up.
Oh! Oh!
Whoa, 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 my favorite bard, Korak the Bard, how could you claim that Trump would be so monstrous as to victimize his own supporters? Yeah, the idea that a public figure could be so narcissistic as to not care what happens to their own supporters is simply unthinkable.
But
It is a bit odd that from a prone position with a clear shot, a halfway decent marksman would go from being just a few centimeters off of their target to hitting another target far behind that one, especially now that their target is lying prone on the floor after the first shot. The only logical conclusion for a good conspiracy theory is that
The call's coming from inside the house!
considering that the rally-goer who was shot was standing behind Trump in the left-hand side of the bleachers, and Trump fell to his right after grabbing his ear, and the doctor who happened to be on the scene reported that the gunshot wound was on the left side of the man's head. One can only conclude that Trump himself pulled the trigger.
Bing bong!
But where was Trump's gun? For that answer, we only need to listen to Trump himself.
Let me get my shoes. Let me get my shoes.
That's right, hidden in Trump's shoes underneath his lifts was a James Bond-style weapon, and as you can see, Trump was eager to keep that evidence secret, as he refused to leave without first concealing the evidence. And as the Secret Service allowed Trump to pause and collect this evidence without whisking him away immediately, means that the Secret Service was in on it too. And here, when he stops everyone, it looks like he's pausing heroically in defiance of his attempted assassination, while at best, he's only continuing to endanger the lives of his security detail and the innocent bystanders around him to pause for a photo op, since no one at that point knew if there was another shooter. But here's what really happened. Once the Secret Service said that the target had been neutralized, Trump knew there were no other shooters because his fall guy had been eliminated. He was now in the clear to create the photo op that would seal the deal for his presidential campaign. Trump just got the best of both worlds. He's claimed martyr status without having to die. With an army of supporters willing to commit violence in his name.
You done changed the game, that's what you did.
Why else would there be no security on the roof where the shooter set up?
Cui bono?
Why would the sharpshooters hold their fire until after the assassins started firing?
Cui bono?
How did an innocent bystander far from Trump take a headshot to the opposite side of the head from where the shooter was positioned?
Cui bono?
And why pause twice for a photo op when you don't know if there's another shooter, subjecting you and everyone around you to the potential for more gunfire?
Cui bono!
And who's making money off of the merch from this momentous occasion?
Cui bono?
Oh man, this is what it must feel like to be Tucker Carlson. I'm not insinuating anything, just asking questions. Really, really dumb questions. Speaking of dumb, Margie Trader Greenfoot, Miss Bleach Blonde herself, Bleach Blonde Bad Bill Bush Buddy, is saying that we should investigate Biden for the shooting, when in reality, we should be investigating Trump for orchestrating this entire thing. But remember, no matter what, we all need to lower the tone. Because promoting violence and using violent rhetoric is not what the right is all about.
Send me to Washington.
Alex Jones is accepting the media narrative that someone tried to assassinate Trump. But the fact that he's not calling this a false flag orchestrated by Trump himself means that,
Yes, friends, Alex Jones is actually in on it too.
who was the Trump crony who initiated contact with the shooter? Who, in Trump's sphere of influence, had the resources and Rolodex to be able to get in touch with a young, impressionable youth willing to do unspeakable things in the name of patriotism? That's right, Alex Jones himself. Donald Trump and Alex Jones. One a cruel, evil mastermind who used his wealth and power to destroy the lives of those around him and owes an insane amount of money to his victims. And the other, a cruel, evil mastermind who used his wealth and power to destroy the lives of those around him and owes an insane amount of money to his victims. It was the perfect crime and the perfect way to rig an election. And here's where we find ourselves. People who were always going to vote for Trump still are. People who were going to stay home because Trump is repugnant, and for some voters, even January 6th was a bridge too far. But now he's a fucking hero who took
a bullet for democracy.
So they're not staying home on election day anymore. And then there's the people who vote for whomever they think will win, which statistically is a significant chunk of voters. That's all swung Trump's way now. So I ask you,
Cui bono?
And there's no way that Biden is going to do anything remotely momentous as emerging from under a hail of bullets with a power fist underneath an American flag. So Democrats need a new candidate if they don't want to just throw the election to this madman. A madman who retreats to one of his mini golf courses for a relaxing game of putt-putt the day after one of his supporters is killed. Classy as ever. So there you have it, folks. The two real masterminds behind the false flag Trump assassination conspiracy. Odin, help us.
The Lord tells me he can get me out of this mess, but he's pretty sure you're fucked.
I hope you enjoyed this trip through the Twilight Zone with me. For more hot takes, you can always catch me on Twitter. And if you like this content and want exclusive, more personal contact with me, head over to patreon.com/KorakTheBard. Until next time, I'm your favorite bard, Korak the Bard, singing off with...
Violence ain't the answer, it's never the way. If you hurt someone for making fun of you, then fuck right off today. You can fuck right off today. Political violence and terrorism just ain't the American way. If you're not with me politically and wanna put a bullet in my head, well then friend, you done already lost the fight, 'cause nobody has to end up dead. I said friend, you done already lost the fight, 'cause nobody has to end up dead.
For a more detailed and forensic analysis of the shooting, visit the link in the description. Meanwhile, stay out of them rabbit holes. You never know where they might lead.